Well, hello everyone. Welcome to MoonDay Morning Astrology with Sibyl Star. I am going to be giving you the forecast for the week of October 31st through November 6th. All right, well, to begin with, the sun is in Scorpio. It's traveling at 8 to 14 degrees of Scorpio. Oh, and I did want to say this, especially for those of you that are new. I call this MoonDay Morning Astrology because Monday is the day of the moon, and this comes out on Mondays. All right. And I do talk a little bit about the moon. You know, the moon is often an overlooked component of the astrological chart when we're doing forecasts. And the truth of the matter is, you know, the moon is the most intimate part of ourselves. It represents the emotional body, and it's really how we meet the world. So it's kind of good to know the emotional cycles, where the moon is at. So I'll be talking about the moon at the end of the forecast. So back to the sun. The sun is transiting through Scorpio. And the evolutionary goal of Scorpio is to feel everything deeply. The key is to feel the emotion and then release it, and to realize emotion is, they say emotion is felt for 90 seconds. And any suffering after that, it's the story that we tell ourselves around it. You know how we can go over and over something in our minds, and Scorpio can be, you know, remember, I don't know if any of you remember that song, It Hurts So Good. Well, that's kind of sometimes the way Scorpio functions. So the key is to know, just like the moon, that we can release that the emotion is transitory, but we have to allow ourselves to feel it. Scorpio does say we do have to feel it, because if we don't feel it, that's when it hangs around in our body, and that's when it causes problems. So allowing ourselves to feel and then move through it. It's a time of emotional body healing, releasing old stories and old grudges. A Scorpio is also has what I call a high BS detector. I can see right through stuff. Scorpio is highly intuitive and psychic, you know, seeing through the veil of illusion. A Scorpio rules the elimination system in the body, and it says, let it go. And they say Scorpio comes in like the scorpion, ascends like the eagle, and ultimately is transformed like the phoenix rising from the ashes. And what transforms in Scorpio is through forgiveness, is to recognizing that we're all on this journey together and we all make mistakes. But the key, of course, is to begin with forgiving ourselves. And actually, we're going to be coming over the cross-quarter day of Samhain. They say in ancient times it was celebrated for 6 days. The actual cross-quarter day is at 15 degrees of Scorpio, which happens on November 7th, but celebrations start around October 31st and for the whole week. You know, it's the time of the year when the veil is thin, and we can communicate with our beloved dead. They say they come back. So anyway, that's where the sun is in Scorpio. Mercury is also in Scorpio. Mercury is the god of the mind, and you know, Scorpio is so much about seeing. It's about seeing in the dark, shamanic seeing what lies below the surface. So Mercury and Scorpio is often called a shamanic seeing through the illusion and speaking truth. Venus is also in Scorpio and opposes Uranus on Saturday, November 4th. And so Venus is goddess of love. She represents our connections with others as well as our self-love. And Venus in Scorpio asks us to be vulnerable in relationships. Venus wants deep intimacy. And the only way to be intimate is to be vulnerable, to be emotionally honest and truthful with our partners and with our friends and with ourselves. Okay. Scorpio wants emotion. Venus in Scorpio wants emotional depth. And if it is not there, a relationship could end abruptly. So, you know, Scorpio is one of those signs that it's like they hang on and hang on forever, but when they're done, and it can happen just immediately. Okay. And opposite Uranus, there could also be not only sudden disruptions in relationships, but sudden attractions as well. Uranus can be very, well, word isn't really charismatic, but exciting. That's the word. Exciting new attractions may show up in our lives. All right. So we are also in what is called the eclipse portal. We're in between eclipses. We had a solar eclipse on November 25th, and we're going to be having a lunar eclipse. Excuse me. We had the solar eclipse on October 25th, and we'll be having the lunar eclipse on November 8th. So we're right in the middle. And the solar eclipse was at 2 degrees of Scorpio, and we're still very much in that energy. The eclipse, there's about 3 days of the eclipse, but its impact lasts for up to 6 months. So to just know this energy lasts for up to 6 months. And this eclipse was conjunct something called the Shapley attractor. And I said it was a black hole in my last video, but I've come to an understanding that it's not really a black hole. It is a portal of cosmic energy that bends light. So it's more like energy pouring in instead of energy coming out. And it really felt like a huge energetic upgrade. I felt it very strongly. The night of the eclipse, I could barely sleep. I felt like my whole body was vibrating. And I realized it was an energy upgrade. And I talked to many people who said they had similar experiences. Many people had huge releases, episodes of just releasing old unconscious material. And this is a time of releasing trauma from the past and transmuting it into love through forgiveness. And it's important to remember that forgiveness of self is forgiveness of others, and forgiveness of others is forgiveness of self, because there really is no difference. There is no other. And so whichever door you enter, when you start the forgiveness process to let it go, you clear that old trauma and the old things that no longer need to be in your field. Now we're coming up on the lunar eclipse, which is on November 8th. And here in the United States, that's on Election Day. And eclipses are known, especially lunar eclipses, bring to light what has been hidden. Okay. And we have a Sun, Mercury, Venus in Scorpio opposite the moon and Uranus in Taurus. And it is that moon that is being eclipsed. Okay. And the moon, how the moon is eclipsed is when the shadow of the earth comes between the sun and the moon. And this moon is in Taurus. So the lunar eclipse is in Taurus at 16 degrees of Taurus. And I want to read the Sabian symbol because I think it's just so appropriate for what is happening now. It says, an old man is attempting, with a degree of success unsuspected by him, to reveal mysteries to a motley crew. Well, I think there's lots of mysteries coming to light, and maybe we're having more success than we realized. But I feel like, and this eclipse, we have the fact that Uranus is involved brings surprises on a collective and personal level, especially relationships. And Saturn is square this eclipse, so I feel like there is the potential for huge leaps in consciousness and breakthroughs. Okay, I'll be talking more about this eclipse. I'll be doing a video about it to give you a little more guidance and understanding. And the other big thing, of course, is weather and earth changes. Here in the San Francisco Bay Area, we had a 5.1 eclipse on the a 5.1 earthquake on the solar eclipse. So something like that could happen again. Okay. All right. So we also this week still have Mars. Mars went retrograde on October 30th. We've been talking about that for a long time. Mars is in Gemini and it's square Neptune. Mars will be in Gemini for a total of 7 months. by the time it's done. And we will have learned Mars. I feel like, when Mars goes retrograde, it's saying think before you act. It is to take a pause before you move forward. And in Gemini, it also impacts our communication. Think before you speak, recognize the impact that your words have. But Mars is also in a square to Neptune. Mars also has to do with our direction in life. It's our energy, it's our motivation, it's our passion. It's just do it. And it can also bring up anger and conflict. But anyway, it's in a square to Neptune, and that's a challenge. And so Mars Neptune aspects are often connected to deception and illusion. Okay, so it's important in this field to recognize that all is not what it seems. Don't believe everything you're told or even what you think you see. We can allow ourselves to be taken advantage of by wanting something to be true that just isn't. Okay, so if the signs are there, acknowledge them, recognize them. Okay, but Mars Neptune is also connected to magic. And magic is the ability to direct energy and align with natural forces. It's following the force of attraction. When we relax and trust in the flow of the universe, we are intuitively pulled toward the choices and circumstances that foster our evolution. My lighting is doing some weird things here, so hopefully that's better. There we go. And to know that we are all always nurtured by creation, even when it doesn't feel that way. Bashar has a teaching that I think just exemplifies this Mars Neptune aspect so well. And he says, to follow your excitement in each moment. When you make a choice that feeds the light in your heart, it brings synchronicity. It's like breadcrumbs from the universe. The universe says, oh, okay, this is what she wants. She's recognizing her passion. She's asking for a passion. When I give it to her, she's following it. And so I'm going to open more doors for her. So it's so important to realize that as we feed the light within grows and our way becomes clearer. Okay. And so Mars will be retrograde from October 30th until January 11th. And so I feel like it's just really saying to trust and follow the flow of magic, and you may find yourself in a completely different place than where you are right now. All right. The Uranus-Saturn square is still in effect, but it's separating. Saturn turned direct. And with Saturn turning direct and things are really starting to move forward, I feel like there's going to be a really big breakthrough with this eclipse, okay, with the lunar eclipse, especially since the Saturn-Uranus square are involved. With the awareness that the external world is actually a reflection of our inner world, and that when we change our perspective, we change our world, okay? And I've been talking a lot about the Jupiter-Saturn square, Uranus being the evolutionary need for change and Saturn being the restrictions. So I feel like it's kind of like in a way, even though Mars is retrograde and we're following that flow, I feel like the flow of energy is flowing better than it has been. Okay. All right. Jupiter has gone back into Pisces at 29 degrees. And Jupiter is the ancient ruler of Pisces. And he reminds us that we live in a beneficent universe and that everything that happens, we have chosen on some level. So in some way, it is serving us. So to try to understand what that is, to help us remember too, that we live in a field of infinite possibility, and the attitude of gratitude changes everything. All right. All right. So what is happening with the moon? So the moon starts out Monday in Capricorn. That's the perfect sign to start out the work week, because Capricorn is very much about work, being serious, responsibility. It's time to get to work. Now it's also conjunct Pluto. And so really asks us to be emotionally mature, own your stuff, and that will actually help you accomplish your goals. Okay. Tuesday and Wednesday, the moon is in Aquarius. And Aquarius, Capricorn likes to fit in and follow the rules. Aquarius does not. Aquarius is the rule breaker. There's a need to be different, not following the crowd, loving your own uniqueness and being visionary. Although the moon is conjunct Saturn in Aquarius, so you may need some time alone. And to honor that you may need some solitude. Okay. Thursday through Friday, the moon is in Pisces, which is dreamy, artistic, and magical, but also confusing. Things may not make sense. And especially with Mars in square Neptune too, things may be very confusing. So it's really about following your own inner guidance. I've talked about this as well, following your own inner GPS, staying grounded and centered, following your own GPS, inner GPS, because the outside signals are just not working as well. The moon is conjunct Neptune, so it's important to make some time for prayer and meditation, all the different ways you can to connect with that inner guidance, because that's what is really turned on. Saturday and Sunday, the moon is in Aries. Aries is fiery, courageous, and passionate. Square Pluto, it says you may need to stand up for yourself. Set some healthy boundaries where we say no. All right. So wishing you all a wonderful week and sending many blessings to you this week. And if you're interested in having a reading, all of my information is in the description box below. I'm now doing galactic astrology readings, which I will start doing more promotion and telling you more about them shortly. And also, if you like this video, please check like and subscribe. All right. Namaste.